Hey everyone, I'm here with this guy, Aldo. I don't know if you all know, but Aldo and I work together at ASI, and Aldo's got his own YouTube channel called
Aldo James, just my name. We're going to link it in the description down below.
For sure, and if you haven't subscribed to that, make sure you do now, because it's, Aldo talks a lot about technology stuff like Surface and Mac as well, and how to do things on your PC, how to do things better, which I love. So.
Yeah, I just try and help people find the fastest way to do something and solve general questions that I find a lot of people do have.
Which we love. So, in fact, Aldo and I have known each other for quite a long time. I think it must be coming up to 10 years because we work together. You used to work at the Microsoft store.
Yeah.
A lot of work for Microsoft doing training. We worked together back in the day. So
yeah,
it's cool. The last few years we've got to work together here at ASI. So.
And now we've been working together for what, 2 or 3 years now?
It's coming up. Yeah, it's 2.5 at least. So yeah.
Really cool.
Fun times. So we're here together though because we wanted to talk about some new product announcements Microsoft made last night. A whole new category of devices they're calling Copilot Plus
Copilot
PCs.
Plus PCs. Right after they've announced the AI PC, we now have the Copilot Plus PC.
Not confusing at all. Thanks, Microsoft. But
and if it is, we are here to help you decipher what
it actually means.
What it actually means, yeah.
So, and most importantly, 2 new Surface devices, which we're really excited about.
The Surface Pro 11 and the Surface Laptop 7. I'm actually really excited about both of them.
Yeah.
But I can't wait to get my hands on that Surface Pro 11.
Yeah, because we've both had our hands on the Surface Laptop 7, but we haven't had a chance to to get our hands on some cool things with the Surface Pro. So. We'll look forward to that. We'll bring you some more content around that, no doubt. But there are a couple other things that we want to talk about as well. We're going to talk about some of the software announcements that they made, what this Copilot Plus PC actually means, and some of the applications that we're going to see on that initially, and what the future is of that too. So let's jump in.
I think just before we jump in, I think the really cool thing about that is that although today we're going to focus on the Surface side of things, there's a lot coming to Windows, irrespective of the device you do have. If it is an AI or a Copilot Plus device, you are going to get some awesome features from Microsoft in the future.
And I haven't said this yet, but the announcements last night were all about Windows on ARM. So this is the architecture. We've talked a lot about it on our channel. We both have about the Surface Pro X. From there on, we've seen this resurgence of Windows running on ARM-based PCs, the same sort of architecture that's in your mobile device.
Yeah.
And I wanted to sort of start talking about that actually because Qualcomm has been the chip manufacturer, competing against Intel in this sort of space, and AMD, I guess, that's built those processors for the devices we talked about, Surface Pro X 1 and 2, and the Surface Pro 9 5G. We both use those.
Yeah, I've been using my 5G for the past year since it came out.
Yeah.
And I've got to say, it's been extremely flawless.
You had a few issues early on though, didn't you?
Actually, this is true. The first 2 weeks I had it, I was having issues with the webcam. Turned out to be a software bug. Oh. But since then, it's actually all been fixed. So very good call out. The first 2 weeks was a little bit hit and miss. Yes. But after that, the past year has been flawless. And
I've been using this on a daily basis as well, so absolutely loving that. But those chips, from Qualcomm were, early, I guess, iterations of what Qualcomm are going to do on the PC. And what I think is really interesting, and I haven't seen it mentioned anywhere in the discussion of this, product launch last night, is this company Nuvia.
Yes.
So, just talking to you earlier, you hadn't heard of Nuvia, Aldo, until I mentioned them, right?
No, but what you told me was actually really cool. So
it's a really interesting story, right?
You should pay attention right now because this is...
Thanks, mate.
I'll let you.
Nuvia was a company founded by, I can't remember the gentleman's name, but he was the chief engineer behind the M1 at Apple. So a chip designer with a pretty high standard. And he left in 2019 just as the M1 was coming to market to start up his own company on the side with a bunch of engineers from Apple and places like Google, etc. They built this new company, no doubt got it funded, to design ARM chips for different applications like desktop PCs. Obviously, that's what Apple have done so well in the last couple of years. So the interesting story about that is that Qualcomm, within 2 years, swept in to purchase this company, Nuvia.
Yep.
And for about $1.5 billion, they bought it and integrated it into their company, and no doubt their technology and their approach into their chip design. The chip that they're first coming to market with this team is called the X Elite or the X Pro. Plus?
So you have the Snapdragon X Plus, and then you have the top tier Snapdragon X Elite.
That's the one, right?
Yes.
So both of those chips are designed by this team. So it's really the first iteration that we're going to see of that kind of intelligence and that knowledge going into this chip design for a much wider platform. We're going to see those chips not just in Surface devices, they're in Lenovo or Dell and HP and ASUS, all over the board. But there's a big push behind these chips.
Yes.
And everything that we're seeing about these chips, it says that they're incredible in terms of performance, which is what we've been waiting for.
Well, I can't wait to get my hands on these devices to trial them for myself. Like you said, we've been using the Pro 9 5G with what you'd almost call a proof of concept of Windows on ARM. And these chips are promising so much more performance, battery life, and AI capabilities that I really cannot wait to test these for myself. And I know you're just as eager to get hands-on with these devices.
I am. And what's interesting, and I think we should talk about, is the Windows on ARM story. And we're not going to go back into the depths of Surface RT over 10 years ago now. Basically from 2019 is really where the proper story starts with Windows on ARM. And we saw in Windows 10, we had Windows on ARM support, but it didn't support all of the apps. It was a bit, hit and miss. We didn't have 64-bit app emulation, so there was a lot of apps that missed out.
No, but then I feel like over time, even with Windows 10, they were getting progressively better and better.
Yeah.
And then it's landed us to, say, the Surface Pro 9 5G.
Yeah, where the story got a lot better. And I would say for most people, most of the time, you're not going to notice today that you're running a different architecture. You won't need to know that this is an Intel PC and this is an ARM-based PC, because most things just work now. Like, I know for me, I used to miss the Dropbox client. It was really annoying that I couldn't get it on the Pro X.
Yep.
But with Windows 11, when that came out, 64-bit support came along. It still wasn't there then, but then Dropbox launched their ARM version of their app.
Yep.
And I didn't even know they did it. I think I only found out recently, but I installed it and it works brilliantly. We've seen other apps like 1Password I use a lot. Chrome.
Yeah.
Chrome has come to ARM now. I think that's live and out there. I've been using Edge for a long time because it always had ARM support natively. Opera announced that they have ARM support too.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, which is interesting.
Yeah.
So what they're saying is that 80% of the apps that people use are now, 80% of the time that people spend in apps are running natively on ARM. Zoom is another one. Teams, of course. Microsoft Office, all of those apps are running natively on ARM.
Yeah.
They're not emulated at all.
And what I've heard is that even if they are emulated, and the Pro 9 5G that I've been using, I couldn't tell the difference whether I was using it as a ARM native app or an emulated app. And to me, as an end user, I didn't really mind whether it's emulated or it's native. I just wanted it to work, and it did.
Yeah. So that brings us to Adobe, which back in 2019 when the Pro X came out, promised support for apps like Fresco.
I was so excited when they made that announcement.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
And it never came. And 4 years later, it did finally ship, but again, I missed it because it was so long. I'd been checking for so long, I gave up.
You gave up, as a lot of people did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is there now, and it works really beautifully on the Pro 9 5G.
Yep.
But Adobe Story is difficult because they've blocked apps from using emulation, right? So think apps like Premiere Pro or even Premiere Rush, you can't even hope to get those up and running. We found some early hacks to get around that, and try and make it work, but it never really worked properly.
Yeah, and then you get an update, or there's people that they don't want to hack their PC.
Yeah.
They just want the Adobe apps to work. So for those people, they don't want it to be a workaround. They want it to just work for them.
Yeah. And so I think maybe DaVinci came along and put a little bit of competitive pressure on Adobe. Back at the Qualcomm announcement of the X Elite processors, the Snapdragon X Elite, they came out and said, we're going to support Windows on ARM because DaVinci is an amazing video editing app. Heaps of people using it on Mac. It'd be really cool to have that running natively on a PC on ARM as well. Because that's one of the cool things about ARM, right? It does video work so well. It's much more efficient. It does it with better battery consumption. It runs cooler.
Yeah, it runs cooler, better battery. And I just find once you start getting these AI processors built into it, when you have a device like the Snapdragon Elite with an AI or an NPU, which we'll get into in a second, it's just going to enhance your video workflow. And then if you can do all of that on the applications you love, like DaVinci Resolve, it just makes your experience on Windows so much better.
It's going to mean that we could do things like a video export without barely touching the battery, and that is going to be awesome, right? So, so that's put the pressure on Adobe, and they've come out and said, oh no, we're going to release Adobe Premiere Pro
Yep.
for Windows on ARM real soon. So we'll believe it when we see it, because we've been burnt before by Adobe.
It's true, but this competition just means we all win. So
Exactly.
if DaVinci is putting pressure on Adobe, then hey, that gives you two options of video editing software that you may not have had previously.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really cool. And the Copilot Plus PC, we should probably cover off what that actually means.
Yes, let's do it.
The Microsoft people are throwing around these numbers and a new stat that we should all pay attention to, right? Called TOPS.
Yes, TOPS stands for trillion operations per second.
Trillion operations per second, wow. Yeah,
and
okay.
I'm not one to get into text and specs and speeds and feeds, because for me, I believe it's if it just works and it does what you need it to do.
That's most important.
It is most important, right? But if you hear the word TOPS, it stands for trillion operations per second.
Yep.
And that is driven by the NPU.
Right, so this is NPU stuff, and the NPU story is really interesting. We've talked about it previously on the channel, but in this case, we're talking about 40 trillion operations per second being the benchmark to become a Copilot Plus PC. So there's other PCs like the ones that just came out from Microsoft with Intel processors in them that don't meet that specification.
No, so the Pro 10 and the Laptop 6, they are business-focused devices. They don't meet this Copilot Plus PC offering. That doesn't mean that they're bad PCs.
No.
That just means they don't meet the Copilot Plus. Those computers are amazing for general AI workloads, but if you're wanting the cutting edge in terms of Copilot and AI, that's where you would want to get a Copilot Plus PC.
Yep.
And right now, it's only Snapdragon that makes processors that really meet that benchmark.
So no doubt, like we know, and I know from talking to the Surface people in Redmond, it won't be long, Intel will catch up on that, but as it stands, ARM is leading that race, and but that's the benchmark anyway. So 40 TOPS, when we see them meet that,
yep,
it'll be the race will be on. So that'll be interesting.
And again, having this race, having this benchmark, it means that we'll win as consumers. If it's pushing Intel and AMD to catch up to these ARM processors, it just gives us more device choice.
It does indeed, yeah. And on that, so some of the things that we know and will expect, because we have them already on our PCs, like the Surface Pro 9 5G, is Windows Studio effects, right?
Yes.
We were talking about that before. So on these new PCs, we don't just see that eye gaze feature that'll automatically adjust your eyes. We see a lot more that background blur on the device.
Yeah.
We see some cool stuff.
You've got voice isolation. So in a loud environment, the PC will actually focus on your voice and blur out that background, just like it does with objects in the background. It will actually blur out any noises. And the beauty of it running on the NPU over the processor is the NPU, the CPU is a great general processor, but it's not great at handling these specific workloads like background blur and voice isolation.
Yeah.
Once you get that NPU, this is an AI chip specifically designed for AI workload. And the beauty of that is that you can now offload all these processors onto the NPU. Freeing up that CPU means less heat, better battery life, and a better overall performance from your device.
Absolutely. Like the voice focus feature is one that really interests me because one of the software stories that Microsoft told about Copilot here was an application called, it's actually based on an existing Windows 11 application called Live Captions. So love Live Captions. It's a fantastic tool. It allows you to have captions in a specific place on your PC. When you think about like having captions in your apps, they're different in every app. So in Teams, I can turn on captions, but it's a specific setting. In Zoom, it has a different setting. If I go to YouTube and watch a video and want to watch with captions, well, there's a different setting there that I need to toggle on. So all of these different places for captions. Live Captions enables you to have that on screen on your Windows PC in a specific spot, and style, font, colors, all that sort of stuff that you want, always in the same place for all of those apps. And that actually already runs on device. You do not need a connection to use Windows 11 Live Captions. So if you haven't checked that out, go and check it out. It's an app that's installed on Windows 11. Cool thing about that app is it allows you to listen to the audio from the microphone, so you can get live captions from a conversation like we're having now. You'd see that actually coming up on the screen. That's obviously got some accessibility implications, but the demo that they showed here was live translations in that app. And again, that's something that we do already with Google Translate and that sort of stuff. I love Google Translate. It always gets me around Japan when I go snowboarding, because I can, read, take a photo of things and read the text in English. but that always relies on a connection. And I know when I'm traveling, like I never really have that connection. It's always a bit sketchy. You know, it drops out, or I don't have any data left, all those sorts of things. This is a workload that's going to run on that NPU on the PC. So doing that translation into multiple languages without that extra load of going to the internet. Right?
Well, you don't have that extra requirement on internet. And the thing that you said that really stands out for me is the fact that you have consistency irrespective of the app that you're in. So you could be in Teams, in Zoom, on YouTube, or having that live captions for translation, and you have the same experience. So you're not looking for the settings. You've turned it on once, it's running on your device, it's not needing internet connection. And for me, that is a huge benefit, especially when it comes to accessibility.
And one of the reasons that it works so well is another AI story, which is that voice focus that you were talking about there, right? So two things about Surface devices. They have one of the best microphone setups that I've seen on a PC. They have their dual far-field studio microphone array. They're really good at screening out noise and also picking up conversations that are happening maybe at a distance. So when I'm presenting, I often use live captions in PowerPoint, and it'll pick me up when I'm 5 or 6 meters away from the device, and it'll still be coming through clearly, because two things, like the microphones are really good, but then we have that voice focus feature that's really tuning out, using AI to tune out that background, and that's happening on device. I don't need an internet connection, right? So the two things, the software and the hardware, really coming together into a really interesting meld. And that's why I love that app, live translation in live captions in Windows.
It's that better together story of the software, the hardware, and the operating system really just working together to give you that fluid experience.
Now, a lot of the one that people are probably going to be thinking about, and certainly we'll see in the news, is an app that they called Recall. We've sort of seen a demo of it before. I don't know how much real, whether we've seen the real demo on this and as it will be shipped when it finally comes out, that app, but it's a really interesting one. People are a bit creeped out by it maybe, because what it does is it actually takes screenshots of your PC as you use it and keeps them over time. Fortunately, you can exclude stuff. You might want to think about that. And we were talking about Microsoft sharing their non-disclosure presentations that they do with us, right? But a couple of things about that. One, we could exclude that stuff, and I imagine Microsoft will have a mechanism to stop us recording their NDA disclosures. But
you'd want to hope so.
But it's also on device, so it's not using the cloud at all for that workload. It's something that will work locally on your device. Why do you want screenshots of your PC for the last year? Well, search, right?
I saw, as soon as I saw this, I thought this is the next iteration of search, because you're not only searching for things on the internet or documents, you're now searching within documents. You're searching on what's been on your screen before. So it could be a PowerPoint presentation where you remembered a quote within that presentation, but it wasn't your presentation.
With this app, we won't have to be so specific. We'll be able to use natural language to query and to search and to say, when was I on that Teams call with Aldo and he was wearing a green t-shirt, right? And it will be able to go through and go, that might be it there, that screenshot.
I think you hit the nail on the head in that it's the natural language querying, in the fact that you can type in a bit of a summary of what you're looking for, and it's going to pull it up so it knows what was on your screen, both in terms of text as well as visual images.
And when we think about like the potential applications for that at the moment, I've got my web browser history, I can search that, but that's in the browser. And then I've got my cloud search. I could go to OneDrive maybe and search through my OneDrive, or Office.com, search through all my stuff there. It's another place to go. Then I got Windows search on the start menu. It's going to search some of that stuff. The old school file explorer with the, the slow file search that we used to do in there. Like, all of those experiences are kind of disparate. This is one place that you could search all of that stuff. What have I done on my PC? And that's kind of interesting. We'll wait and see what the implementation is like and how creepy it really is. But I think it's actually really cool, and I think it's got a lot of potential.
I think once you get past that creepiness factor, it is going to be an amazing feature that people, once they start using it, they're going to start wondering how they ever worked without it.
Yeah, for sure. And one last thing that we saw, and this kind of makes me think a little bit about the way people are using their PCs. And by the way, that's what we're here today doing. Like, we're filming here, Cruise here, where we're filming more of our digital skills series to help people improve the way they use Surface devices and Office 365 and the whole Microsoft suite. But I saw a lot of people demonstrating this feature called Co-Creator in YouTube videos this morning, and they had their Surface Pros, and they drew a little sketch of something that they had in mind, pretty rudimentary kind of, kiddie sort of level sketch. and then it turned it into a photorealistic picture or a sketch or something like that. So a pretty cool application, but you know, when people were sitting there with their Surface Pro and they were reaching across the keyboard, I'm like, oh, missed opportunity, right?
Yes, a missed opportunity to teach people how to use the hardware in front of them.
Yep.
If you have a device like Brett is using it right now, don't try and hold it like a laptop, use it like a tablet. If you're using that pen on the screen, use it like a notebook, like a piece of paper.
Yeah, exactly. So, and that's what we're trying to do here. That's what we're working on, right? And that's what's keeping us busy and not making YouTube videos, but it's cool that we got to do this one today because Aldo, by the way, features in our training. He's one of our digital skills coaches, amongst many other things, right? Yeah.
A couple of hats.
So co-creator. Anyway, so what last thing I'll talk about is that, you know, Satya Nadella in a video that I saw this morning was talking about AI as an input method. And we've always been really interested here in what we'd call multimodal computing. I think that's what the science world calls it as well. But inputs beyond the keyboard and the mouse, the microphone with voice, the camera, touch, pen. Yeah. Of course, you know, we talked about eye gaze. There was an app that was demonstrated in one of the videos that we saw called Cephable, which was it's actually a multi-platform app. It's on Mac and I think it's on iPad as well.
Yep.
But that allows you to control your PC and Windows PC in this case with gestures like a swipe or a head turn to move a page or something like that, right?
For accessibility, that is just amazing because if you have other ways to interact with your hardware and you can run it on device and not need the cloud, that makes computing accessible for so many more people.
Yeah, and it also opens up applications that we didn't know were there too, right? I find that personally really fascinating. But AI as one of those inputs was an interesting concept that I sort of want to leave this with. Actually, before we get in, we got to talk about the hardware. I forgot.
Of course.
So Surface Pro 11.
Yes.
My favorite multimodal device because it can do this. It is a tablet. It is a laptop as well, but it now has, well, at least it has the possibility of a detachable wireless Bluetooth keyboard, rechargeable wireless Bluetooth keyboard. Very expensive in Aussie dollars here, which is like, don't take this for American dollars because it's way worse, but $769 Australian with a pen. Wow, that's an expensive keyboard.
It is quite expensive for a keyboard with a pen.
I reckon you could buy a basic iPad, you reckon, Aldo, with a pencil probably for that sort of money?
Yeah, so for that price you could probably get the base model iPad plus the Apple Pencil, which makes us question the motive behind it. Because I think as a feature, people have been asking to detach their keyboard and use it with their Surface Pro for years, and it's finally here.
Yeah, I love it. I love the concept. I mean, I'm so enthusiastic about it that I think I'm going to buy it anyway, but I am a little bit shocked. I've got sticker shock.
I'll be with you buying it as well. But we'll probably, wow. Yeah, it's going to be a tough week that week.
Very cool piece of hardware. And then there's an OLED display on that as well. Apart from that, I don't think it's changed too much. There's a few cool colors that you can get.
Yeah, they've updated the colors to it. Of course, you have that new processor or processors. You have the Snapdragon Plus and the Snapdragon Elite. And then it is that brand new keyboard. You can, of course, also get your regular Surface Pro.
Yes, still get the old one, which is still not cheap, but still cheaper than the detachable one.
It is cheaper. One thing I do love about that detachable one, I'm not sure if you noticed, but it actually has the ergonomics where you can use the magnet around. And I believe you were telling me that it puts it on a more ergonomic angle.
Definitely.
So when you are using it sepaperly, it is better for your wrist.
Keyboard.
Yeah.
For sure. And on top of that, that keyboard has a haptic trackpad. So this new, well, it's not new, but it's been around. I know we've had it on the Surface Laptop Studio for a while.
Yes.
A haptic trackpad rather than the mechanical clicky one, which is pretty noisy on the Surface keyboards. I think it's the most noisy part of the Surface keyboards.
Yep.
That won't be noisy anymore because it will be haptic and it will be something that you can, you can actually really customize how that works a lot. It makes it a lot more versatile.
It opens it up for accessibility because that haptic trackpad allows you to have different inputs onto that keyboard. It understands a lot more. Yeah, you've got different zones and it will understand different gestures too. So I think from the accessibility point of view,
it's another win.
That keyboard, it's another win.
Yeah, and the last thing on that was a 5G option coming later. It's not coming out with the pre-order. That's going to be Wi-Fi only.
Yep.
But there's definitely a 5G option. But we don't think there's a 5G option. And there should be a 5G, right? Because this is a Qualcomm processor, and Qualcomm, they make the 5G infrastructure. They kind of define the standard in a way. They make really cool 5G hardware, and that's what I love about this Surface Pro 9 5G is that 5G access. I just put
It's always connected.
eSIM on there and I'm always connected. Yeah, love it.
Yeah, when I was on the Microsoft website this morning looking at pre-ordering, the Surface Pro gave you the option of choosing Wi-Fi, or it said 5G coming later this year. When you jump to the Surface Laptop 7, it doesn't give you the option of Wi-Fi, and there's no note there around 5G.
Is it a mistake? Is it coming? Well, we don't know.
Yeah, we don't know. I would love to see a laptop with 5G
Yeah, heaps
connectivity
of people would.
from Microsoft.
Yeah.
Just because it's a big feature request that we see every day.
They spend so much time talking about competition with Apple and Macs that this is an obvious way to win that competition, right? Because Apple don't do that.
Apple
And
don't
they're
have.
iPads.
Yeah, they only have their tablet with the SIM card. The other, if you're looking at competition, the other thing that stands out for me from the Surface and the laptop devices is that they can power not one, not two, but three
4K external
monitors.
Yeah, and I know we were talking about, I know with my Surface Pro 9, and I think my Surface Pro 8, I did a test in the office where I got 6 1080p monitors and a 4K monitor, and I hooked them all up to my Surface Pro and they all worked side by side together, which was pretty crazy. I think I got video of it. But you know, with Apple, they're still limited to that one.
One, or if you shut the lid, you can get two.
Right, and whereas straight out of the box, you can have 3 external displays. That might mean you can use 4.
Well, you've got your own, the laptop or the Pro screen on, so technically 4, right?
And I suspect at lower resolutions, you could probably run as many crazy monitors. I mean, I don't see a common use for running 8 monitors at once.
No, but it is kind of cool to flex and say, look at all my monitors. I think for me, 2 would be the max.
2 would be great, yeah. So that's in there. And yeah, anything else about the Surface laptop?
Yeah, I think there's a few really key callouts on this new Surface laptop, and I can't wait to get my hands on it. The first one that I think is actually a retraction is the fact that the Surface Laptop 7 doesn't support pen input anymore, but it does have 10 points of touch. So if you are wanting to write on that screen with a pen, you can't write on the Surface Laptop 7.
Which for me, I always said it's bad ergonomically anyway to do that. And I keep seeing people do it.
And they're like this.
Yeah, it's really awkward. So I'm kind of happy to see that go, but I know a lot of people are going to be disappointed about that. I say get a Surface Pro instead, but you know, there is an advantage to the form factor, you know, the case design and the thermals of the laptop over the Pro. I don't think it's going to matter so much here with these new processors though. But we also saw a bigger screen in the 13-inch device, because there's a 15 of this as well,
so
is that right?
There is in the regular Surface Laptop 5 and 6, there was a 13.5 and a 15-inch. Now we have a 13.8-inch, which is a bigger screen in a physically smaller body.
And that's actually quite substantial. Like, it doesn't sound like much, you know, 0.3 of an inch, but when it translates through to that bezel size, it's quite small.
It makes a big difference. And feeling and playing around with that device when we had it for a little bit, you could definitely tell it was a bigger screen and a smaller body. And then of course you have the 15-inch, which that's just a beautiful device. I can't wait to actually see that one in person.
It's big, but it's cool. And the haptic trackpad comes to that device as well. Was that on the Surface Pro, Surface Laptop 6? Haptic trackpad?
No.
No, right.
Oh,
so
actually, I need to check.
Maybe it was. I can't remember. We'll check that out. So, just to finish, Aldo, what was your favorite thing about all of this?
My favorite thing about all of this is the commitment to Windows on ARM.
Yeah.
I've been using the Pro 9 5G for a year, and what I found is that it gave me phenomenal battery life. It never really got hot, and it just ran so well. And if these processors are the next iteration of that, I can't wait to see what's capable.
I think if they're even close to what they're claiming they are, it'll be amazing. So
definitely.
Yeah. For me, look, I love that keyboard, that new Surface Pro keyboard. I see lots of applications for that. But I also love some of those applications. Like, I really love seeing that focus on input, like the live translation app. That really stands out for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Well, if you haven't yet, go and subscribe to Aldo's channel. If you haven't subscribed to ours, you should subscribe to that right now as well. We'll be back soon, hopefully sooner than we usually are at the moment. Thanks, Aldo.
Awesome. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Cheers.